Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. So excited to have you all on here today. We have a killer guest. Welcome to Prowess Goes Live. Today, we are talking about a framework that is better than EOS for small businesses. And most of us work for micro businesses. So I knew that this was going to be such a fantastic session for everyone. But before we get started, y'all know that we do a starter question. So I want you to put the answer in chat. Starter question is, are you team coffee tea or team no coffee tea? Put into chat. Coffee tea or no coffee tea? Can't wait to see this. I am coffee, tea, all of the above, equal opportunist, get caffeine in my body. No coffee, all the coffee. Team coffee, tea all the way. Coffee, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, so good. So good. All of the above. Amazing. Amazing. Keep putting them in there. Team coffee, team tea, team no coffee and tea. So the reason why I bring that up is because that was one of the first things that this guest and I immediately bonded over. She is team no coffee. And I was like, what? How do you function? How do you function? But she does, and does very, very well. Before I bring her up, y'all all know this by now, but I'm Ashley Connell, CEO and founder of Prowess Project. What we do is we help women pivot in their careers to become online business managers, which is a cross between a COO and a virtual assistant. And as they're going through our training, we gather hundreds of data points on skills, expertise, but also work style, communication style, values, and use all of that data to match them up with their dream clients. So our goal with this live session and all of our live shows is to bring you information, resources, access to people about being an online business manager or just running businesses in general. So with that, I am going to bring up our no coffee and tea guest today, Breanne Dyck. How are you?
I kind of feel like I don't belong because there was no one else on Team Breanne who does not do coffee or tea. I'm feeling a little left out. Maybe on the replay or on the podcast, there'll be some no coffee, no tea. But my partner Jill we call it Team Jill versus Team Breanne. So Team Breanne is no coffee or tea. Jill loves the coffee and tea. So no matter what side of the great divide you land on, Team VCA has you covered.
We talked about this way too long on our first cup, like in the best way. I just was I can't even speak. That you don't do coffee, tea, mushroom coffee. Love it. Love it. Okay, now we're going to get into the real reason why you are here today, better than EOS for particularly small businesses. Before we do, Breanne, give us the quick and dirty of how you got to where you are today as the CEO and founder of Visionary CEO Academy.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, we're joking about drinking coffee. I actually started off my career as a computer programmer. I went to school for computer programming. Then I figured out, well, I've learned how computers work. Now I need to figure out how people work. So I went and did a history of religion degree because I was like, let's see what that's like. And I don't know if you know that, but there's not a lot of career options or career paths for people who have those two combination of things, right? Computer science and religious studies doesn't really lead to a natural career path. So I was putting myself through school using my programming and my computer background, doing like web design back when it was all coded by hand. I wrote some of the very first WordPress themes, like hand coded from scratch. We didn't have page builders and that kind of thing. Found my way into working in higher education. I was building curriculum, again, in the days when online learning was really starting to become a thing. But I always knew that, number one, the bureaucracy of the big organization killed me. being I was either the order taker or the order giver. I was like shuffling papers around constantly. And I remember saying to my mentor, if I actually tried, I could probably make a go of doing this web design stuff that I had on the side. So I started going out on my own. This was when online courses were starting. I was like, all these people need online courses. Great. I have a background in online education and in instructional design. Let me help these people, not only with their web stuff, but with making better courses. And of course, everyone wanted to create a course because they thought that was going to be the magic ticket that would get them out of one-on-one work and all of that. And I would get in there and I would be helping them. And they're like, but why is this not working to free me up like I thought it would? And I would look at their business and be like, it's because your business is broken. Like the underlying business itself isn't working. And you can't just put a course on top of it and hope that that's going to work. So the long and winding road led me to become essentially an OBM before anyone was calling it OBMs. I was working in people's businesses. I was managing their operations. I was running their teams. I was doing all that kind of thing. And as time went on, learned that I'm not the person to be on the tools doing the things. That's not where my gift is. What my gift is to see all of the different pieces and components of a business, to see where they are and aren't fitting together so that I can help the people who are doing the work, like you all, the OBMs who are the ones going and fixing this stuff, to be able to do it in a way that's more effective and more efficient and simpler for everyone involved.
I love this for so many reasons. Thank you for walking us through that, specifically that you did the OBM work before you were able to say, okay, no, that's not actually where I want to play. I want to play in the strategy. A lot of the women who listen to our content or go in our training, their goal is the same. They want to become a strategist, but it's so important that they understand and can do the do before they really do that. So I love it. So you got access to a ton of small businesses. What problem was coming up over and over again that you knew you wanted to solve for them? And then we'll talk about how you solved it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because the problems back, even when I was working on courses, the problem was there's too much for me to do. I can't do it all. I don't want to have to herd everyone en masse into these faceless, nameless, big, massive group programs. I don't want that. I want to still be able to create something that I can feel good about, that creates results for people, but I can't do it all myself. And I mean, that was probably 10 years ago. And then things have certainly changed. But what hasn't changed since then is that people generally in our market start their business because they have something that they love doing, right? Our industry is different from startups. It's different from Silicon Valley, where people are chasing the money, trying to get their funding, trying to do all these things, right? Our people, you probably started the business because you wanted to do something that you love in a way that feels good to you. And the trick is that when that starts working, all of a sudden, that becomes less and less of your job, right? The stuff you love becomes a smaller and smaller proportion.
Yes, without a doubt. Exactly how we describe the CEOs we go after. So I'm loving this. Yes.
So what happens? Your business grows. Running the business becomes the job.
Yep.
And you can try hiring help, building systems, automating the things. I say it's systematizing, automating, and delegating. Mm-hmm. And it leads to SAD business owners, because it's systematizing, automating, and delegating is an acronym for SAD. It leads to SAD business owners because when you add systems, when you add automations, when you add people that you need to delegate, what that's doing is adding complexity into the business. It's not actually taking it away. You're adding things into the business. And that becomes more things that you have to think about as a founder, more things you have to manage, more people you have to pay, more just, mental cycles that you have to spend. And so even if on paper – you have less things that you need to do, your business has grown to be so complex that you don't have the time or energy to be able to do the things that you love, which, by the way, are the things that your clients love, that your market loves, that gets you sales, that gets your clients giving you rave reviews and referrals, the things that grew your business. Now you don't have time to do. And so we see that happen over and over again. And it's why it's so like, let me put it to you this way. I don't know if anyone here is old enough to remember the days when you had to defrag your computer. You had the defragmenting progress. So every time your computer would start to slow down, be like, oh, I have to defrag it. And so you'd set it, and it was like an hour or two, or sometimes overnight, you would run this defrag so that your computer could go through and clean up all of the stuff that was everywhere and all the leftovers and all the bits and pieces. And then you'd have more hard drive space, you'd have more memory, things would run faster. And the reason that, we don't do this on our computers anymore is because the operating systems now do that automatically. They do it for us. And what I see is that a lot of CEOs are still running their business like a computer that needs to be defragged. So they add in all of these things. They add in all of this complexity. And then every once in a while, it's like, okay, I need to do a big cleanup. I need to go in and streamline things and simplify things and, keep them all optimized. And what we look at, and I know I'm jumping ahead to how we solve this. What we say is your business operating system needs an upgrade so that your business operating system does that for you without you needing to stop and put pause on everything so you can clean stuff up. And so that's what we're really looking at. We call our version of the operating system the visionary operating system. And its entire purpose is to keep the model, the operations, and the culture working together so that everyone on the team gets more time, money, and energy profit.
Okay, this is fascinating because you're basically saying do the opposite of what everyone tells you to do. And I love that about you. Like you're saying, okay, don't add systems, yes, you're going to be adding systems, but in the traditional standpoint. So obviously you saw a bunch of operating systems that already existed, like an EOS. What did you feel was wrong with it? And then we'll start talking about like how yours is different.
Yeah. So, first, I want to make sure that if folks don't know what EOS is, it's fine. This isn't about any particular system. I'm not slagging on any particular system. The book Traction, the book Rocket Fuel, those are where the idea of the visionary and integrator language came from. That's the system that is encapsulated with EOS. So if you're sitting here being like, I don't even know what EOS is, if you've ever heard of the term an integrator, that's where it comes from. But here's the thing with EOS and even all of these other operating systems, way back to, again, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but the book, The E-Myth, was one of the first books that came out and was like, yeah, you don't want to be the operator working in the business. Like, you want to actually be the entrepreneur. You want to be running the business, so on and so forth. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the E-Myth. It doesn't matter if you're looking at EOS. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the 4-hour work week, right? If you want to go to the other extreme. All of these books, these methods, these systems are based on a few things which don't apply to pretty much everyone in this conversation. Number one, they are written by cis white het dudes who have incredible power, privilege, and are used to working from a place where they can just tell people what to do and expect it to be done. So these systems are built on power dynamics, they're built on hierarchy, and they're fundamentally built on a worldview that assumes that financial profit is the only ultimate measure of success. And so while they talk about people and culture and values, when push comes to shove, and I have seen this so many times, people bring in consultants to install these big name operating systems. The culture gets destroyed. People hate their jobs. They see massive staff turnover because it's always in service of the bottom dollar. So that's the first problem, is who's coming up with these systems in the first place. And I don't blame them, right? Because that's their worldview. That's the only perspective they can bring to the table, right?
Yes.
So that's the first problem. The second problem is, what context are these operating systems applicable to? Well, it's for either VC funded startups where you have several $1 million of cash coming in. So you can hire a director of marketing and a demand gen person and a product, a CXO, CTO, CFO, CMO. Like you can get that whole suite going on, right? So they're either for the VC funded startups or they're for big corporate. Now, I don't know about you, but my little team of 2, 3, 4, 5 people doesn't have a marketing department. It doesn't have a sales department. It doesn't have a VP and then a director under them and then a manager under them and then a team lead under them and then the minions at the bottom. And nor do I want it to. But that's what these operating systems and these methods out there are based upon, because that's the dominant market for these books, is people who work in big companies, hundreds, thousands of companies, even 50 employees is a much different situation than 5 team members, half of whom only work 20 hours a week.
Right.
Right?
I am
That's the second issue.
Oh, good. There's more issues. Fantastic.
Yeah, there's one more.
You're talking. No. I love that you're underscoring this, because again, this is exactly who our OBMs work with. Their clients are exactly who you're describing, the people who don't have all that. So continue.
Yes. Yeah. And so then the third thing is, and so the third one was one that, the first two are really important, but they're the ones that I realized last. The third one was the one that first kind of woke me up to the fact that these systems just don't work for the kinds of small businesses that we're talking about here. And I'm going to give you an example. For those who are familiar with most of these models, they generally have some way of running team meetings. And a really popular one is you have a team meeting and your job is to identify all of the potential things that could go wrong this week. And then you discuss what those things are, and then you come up with a solution. And I thought this was fantastic, because that's the way my brain works. Like, I'm going to brainstorm live on the fly, and we're going to solve all these things. And then when my partner, business and life partner, Jill, joined me in the business, and we started having these team meetings, and as our team grew and we started to have more people, I started to notice that it wasn't working so well, because Jill in particular, she doesn't, her brain doesn't come up with stuff on the fly in the way that mine does. She needs time to think about things. She wants to know the questions beforehand so that she could really consider what she wanted to say and give options and think about how she would respond and, just really be thinking about it. And so I was looking at this and I was like, hang on. All of these systems are assuming that everyone's brain works the same way. It's assuming that you want to think on your feet. It's assuming that you process verbally. It's assuming that you don't have kids running around in the background interrupting you and taking your focus, right? It's assuming a majority workplace, not a workplace that allows for diverse brain types, diverse life experiences, diverse ways of working. And that means if you follow these methods, you will 100% miss out on the brilliance that those diverse views and opinions can bring. Your business doesn't grow as well as it can because you're shutting off so much of the genius from the people around you, including your own often.
Wow. We do so much behavior analysis on how people think and how people learn and how people work. And you are so spot on L10. And we've even seen it, or the L10 meeting or the team meeting. We even I have seen it in previous lives of the people who sit back and need to process and then come back 2 or 3 days later with this brilliant idea, but they don't get the time of day because it wasn't just there. It wasn't just during that time. I love it. So those were, so then tell us, those are the 3 things that you found. Tell us how you built out your framework to solve those problems, or consider them, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could solve those problems.
Yeah.
Our business's purpose, if you will, is based on a simple belief. It's that we believe that every person is a person, first, last, and always. And that means that we are creating, or we're trying to create a business where we're moving toward a place where, every client gets result, every team member is empowered, and every business owner loves their life, right? So for us, this is like the fundamental. And when we look at our business through that lens, it really causes us to ask different decisions. So we talked about the L10, or that team meeting. One really simple example of this, which was one of the first things that we looked at when we started to say, how can we address this, was the idea that, again, in this formula, you're always looking for the problems.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, well, why does it always have to be an issue that we're talking about? Why can't we look for opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
So in our process, and the way that we suggest you run a team meeting, it's an hour a week to manage your team tasks and priorities, and you get the rest of the week to do the stuff you love. In that 1 hour, we talk about obstacles and opportunities, not just problems. And so we started to look at all of these different components of these different systems. Like, we tried them. I tried running EOS, and I ran into these problems. And so I just started changing it, right? I started changing it based on my experience. Jill had worked, managing a team of 14 in corporate. She saw how it worked for corporate, but her team loved her. They loved their manager, which doesn't usually happen, because she didn't just follow the corporate rules. So we started looking at these systems and saying, why aren't they working? And at the end of the day, what we realized is, what I talked about, how these other systems are based on power dynamics and hierarchy, how they're based on big corporate, and how they're based on really just brains that work a certain way. And he said, we realized that at the end of the day, what's common to all three of those things is the extent to which the people on the team are empowered to make decisions. Because, you think about this big corporate structure. Mm-hmm. How do decisions happen? Decision made up on high, right? 5-10 year big picture vision. And then, I worked in this situation. Then you have a corporate, you have your quarterly planning as your department, and then it gets turned into projects and all this stuff. And the number one thing, because every year we would do the big employee survey, right? And it would be like, what's the biggest problem with your job, and blah, blah, blah. And every year, it didn't matter how much anyone tried to fix it. The problem was the stuff we're doing day to day has nothing to do with your strategy and vision. Like, that was the biggest complaint, right? Is that the stuff happening at the top has nothing to do with the stuff happening in the day to day.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's what, if we're not careful, we will end up doing in our own businesses. And as OBMs, if we're not careful, we can inadvertently set our clients up to do that, because what happens is that these CEOs are steeped in a worldview that says decisions should come from the top down. Mm-hmm. And most of them started making decisions for the whole business by themselves because they started as a solopreneur.
Yep.
And so this whole concept of letting other people make decisions is a huge gulf that without specific intervention, most CEOs won't cross.
Wow. So what I love about this is we talk all day about delegation. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is there is a massive difference between delegation and empowering someone to make decisions. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a whole bunch of research on this a couple of years ago, and I keep going back to it and updating it as I see things. We put together, a big in-depth article. If you're interested in it, it's delegationdeception.com. But to summarize, one of the biggest problems with the word or the idea of delegation is the word delegate is a verb. That means someone has to do it. It's an action. To delegate. I'm going to delegate this work to you. What happens after you've delegated it? Well, you have to delegate the next thing. You have to delegate the next thing. There is no end to delegation because it's an action that needs to perpetually happen. And when we talk about delegation, the number one thing that people, when I hear people talking about delegating, they're thinking about all the stuff that's on their plate,
Right.
all the stuff that's on their task list, their to-do list, right? And so they're delegating those tasks. Well, what happens when a task is done if it's been delegated? It goes back to the person who delegated it for review, for approval, for sign off, right? Hey, go and draft this social media post, but I want to take a look at it before it goes out because last time it went out, there was a typo and it was terrible. And now I need to look at it and be across it all the time, right? This is how CEOs get themselves back in the weeds.
Right.
Is they delegate, but tasks boomerang back.
Right.
But more importantly than that is that delegation hides the fact that there isn't just one type of decision in a business. When we delegate, we treat everything the same. We treat everything like tasks. We call those how decisions. How do things get done? So we delegate out how. You figure out how to build this landing page. You figure out how to write this social media post. You figure out how to answer this customer's question. We delegate the how. But there are other types of decisions that happen in every business every single day. There's also decisions about what should happen. What does success look like? What should we be trying to accomplish? What is the goal of this in the first place?
Yeah.
Right? What are our projects? What are our processes? What are we measuring in terms of success? And when we delegate out the how, but we keep the what, that means that those decisions, in order for people to do the how, they always need to come back to us to ask what success looks like.
Totally.
And this causes a lot of friction, right? Where people are constantly like, this didn't meet my expectations. This isn't what I wanted, because they're not clear on the difference between a what decision and a how decision. And the truth is, most CEOs don't care about the how. They just think they care about the how. What they really care about, I want you all to think about like your favorite client, the one you love working with the most. And I want you to imagine that they want more sales, because who doesn't, right? So does that CEO really care if the leads come through Facebook ads or YouTube ads?
Nope.
Like, really, do they care? Do they care how those leads are generated? No. They just want to know that they're getting really good leads and clients to work with.
Yep.
And so when we delegate, we tell people, go do Facebook ads. When we set the expectation of what needs to happen and we start focusing on what decisions, we might say something like, we need to add 100 leads every month to our email list.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we're going to do it. I would like you to figure that out. So what decisions and how decisions are different. They require different skills. They require different approaches. And then there's other types of decisions. There's when decisions, as in, when should we even be doing this? Is this a priority right now? Mm-hmm. This is the level of strategy. We just did quarterly planning with our clients yesterday. And this is the level we were looking at. Is now the right time to launch a new product? Is now the right time to go and try a new marketing channel? Or should we focus on the things we've got? Should we focus on different things and continue to make the things we've got work better? So when decisions inform what success looks like, and what decisions inform how we accomplish it. And then finally, the decisions that most CEOs actually want to be making is the where and why decisions. Where are we going? Why are we going there? That's what vision actually is. And what we want is for that vision to inform the strategy, the when, to inform the what, the definition of success, to inform the how. But equally important, we know that the how has to then be fed back to inform the what. The what has to feed into adjusting our strategy and our priorities. And those priorities come full circle to help us shape our vision. So it's not top down, it's cyclic. And you need to have that built in, or else you end up with transactional delegation, which is based on just stuff going out and in and constantly having things cross your desk that need your attention.
I love the way that you broke it out into different decisions. Because we get that a lot. Oftentimes I describe like the difference between a COO and a OBM and a VA is you are delegating a task to a VA, you're delegating a problem to an OBM. So how would you say that in your terms? You're delegating the what?
The how. The how goes to your VA. The what goes to the OBM. The when is a COO, so an actual COO. And the CEO is usually the one that wants to keep the why and the where.
Sure.
Yeah. And I've got a bunch of examples in that article I mentioned. Like if people want to like sit down and actually be like, here's an example of the how decisions and here's the example of the what decisions. We've got that all broken down and you can see how those actually shake out in practice.
And just so everyone who's listening, when we're speaking to, CEOs who need OBMs, they don't typically have a COO. Yeah. So they're looking for someone who can be good enough to do the when questions and the what questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you think about it, our logo and the way we think about these decisions, it's a pyramid or a triangle shape.
Sure.
The reason is because the how decisions are the foundation. They make up most of the decisions that happen in the business. Mm-hmm. The day-to-day is all how decisions. Mm-hmm. There are fewer what decisions because you don't want to be, creating new projects every day. Some of your clients do want to do that, I know, but ideally you're not getting new projects every day. So the what decisions are less frequent. The when decisions are even less frequent because we don't want to be changing priorities constantly.
Yes.
And the vision is the stuff that changes least frequent of all. And so when we're looking at it from that perspective, a very small team doesn't need, someone to be only making the when decisions or someone to only be making the what decisions. What's more important is that every person on the team knows which of those decision types are they empowered to make, and then have the skills, tools, and abilities to actually make those decisions.
Man. If you ever are talking to a CEO out there, and I'm speaking to the audience, and they are overwhelmed by decision making, the Visionary CEO Academy framework is the answer to that. Like that is what I'm hearing, because you're empowering other people to make decisions. And yes, it will all come together. I'm assuming in that weekly meeting where you're all going to talk about decisions being made or decisions that need to be made in the future. I really love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. And, it goes back to, again, this idea of the operating system. And the other thing that we really emphasize here is that just like a small team with, 2 or 3 people has different needs than a team even of 5, 6, or 7 people, the operating system adjusts as well. And so one of the things that we look at and we help our clients who, sometimes they bring their OBMs, sometimes the OBMs bring their clients to us, right? But we're looking at what is the stage of this business and what operating system is actually needed. If you're at a foundation level and your business is quite small, all you really need is a way to make sure that you have a core process in your business model that you've 80-20'd. So you're doing the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't, you're not doing.
Sorry, real quick, when you say foundational, what does that mean? What are some markers that someone can say, oh, okay, this business is foundational?
So let's say it's up to $10,000 to $20,000 a month.
Okay. So you're looking at, go ahead.
But bigger businesses can always need to go back and revisit their foundation.
True.
Right? So that's why it's like not strictly by revenue level, but in general, you can get to an operating system that has a simple business model where the founder knows how to have what we call uncontaminated time, which is time that they do not work.
Mm-hmm.
And they know how to basically organize themselves around that. Mm-hmm. And a set of differentiated values, because your differentiated values are what help your team make decisions.
Love it.
At a foundation level, those are the three ingredients. You need that model, you need that operations, and you need that cultural ingredient. Amazing. As the business starts to grow, then we can start to add on other elements of the operating system. So this is where on the model side, we're looking at streamline and simplifying it. We're looking at things like building a back end so that you're creating ongoing revenue and not like always having to be out there hunting for new clients. On the operations side, that's where team meetings become more important because now you probably have more of a team, right? So we call it the weekly momentum system that is part of that. Looking at things like actual proper roles and responsibilities so that people know what they own and they know what they're responsible for and they know what those decisions are. Cultural side, hiring in a way that doesn't end up with the wrong people doing the wrong things. And being able to do performance management, but not just performance management. We actually call it mentorship because we want to change the paradigm to where you're not managing people, you're mentoring them to become their best. Anyway, it keeps on going from there, but the idea is that your operating system gets upgraded just like the operating system on your computer gets upgraded as your business grows. And there are key ingredients at each of these levels that you can install. You don't have to do the whole system. You don't have to overbog things like the big corporate systems provide.
And so in that middle system, I missed the name or the label that middle step, not foundation.
Yes, sorry. We call that one the structure scale.
The structure
structure stage, rather.
Okay. I suspect that is the stage that most of our OBMs are, you know.
That's the stage where we see people needing OBMs, bringing in OBMs and that kind of thing. And the way
real quick question on that. Yes. What are some signs that OBMs can look for to know that this could be a good client who could really, really utilize them?
Yeah. So if the client feels like they are constantly being interrupted, or there's a constant, like, so many of our clients come to us and we use Slack to communicate with our clients, and they say, but I don't use Slack. I've had to turn off all my notifications and turn it off my phone because there's too much going on and it's a mess. And I don't look at my project management system because there's too much, moving pieces. So like they're constantly getting pinged with interruptions and distractions, but it's not just them. It starts to bleed over into the team, right? The team is starting to like get interrupted and distracted and no one's able to do their best work. That's one really big sign.
I love that.
Yeah. Other signs are things like, if your CEO hasn't taken a vacation, and when they do take vacation, it's not actually vacation because they're still checking in and doing things. So if your CEO says like, I've delegated all this stuff, I've delegated all of the easily delegatable stuff, everything that's left is only stuff I can do. How many of you have heard that? Oh, I'm the only one that can do the rest of this. Because it's like they're the coach or they're the consultant or they're the person who came up with these ideas. So of course they're the only ones who can do it, except they're not. And then the third thing that we often hear is I'm paying a lot for all of these team members and I'm not sure that we're getting our money's worth out of it. Now, they're not saying that about you, right? They're not saying that about you because y'all are amazing. But there's the person who was supposed to redo their website and that was supposed to be done 10 weeks ago and it's still not done. And oh, right, that's because I had to sign off on this one thing that I forgot. But still, how much am I paying them? And right. And on and on and on and on it goes. So we start to just see the whole system get clogged up.
Yeah.
The analogy that you can use to kind of help you envision this as to what stage the client is in is think about a house that you're renovating and you want to add a second story. So it's just, single story bungalow or whatever, you want to add a second story. Before you can do that, the very first thing you need to do is make sure that the foundation is solid, right? The foundation needs to carry the extra weight. So that's that first level that we talked about. You need to have the basics of your model in place. You need to have the basics of your operations in place, and you need to have some differentiated values in place for your culture. What's the next thing you do before you add that second story? Well, we have to look at the structure of the first story. So we have to go and maybe beef up the walls a little bit, add some beams, add some headers, do that kind of stuff, because the structure is what's going to carry the load of the new stuff that we add on. So again, in terms of model, we're looking at, are we maximizing profit and client results at the same time? When we're looking at operations, we're like, is the team responsible for getting results, or am I the one driving it as the CEO? And when we're looking at culture, we're saying, is the team generating profit, as in time, money, and energy in abundance for everyone, not just the founder? That's the structure layer. And then above that, we can start to scale. We can actually put the new level on the top of your house, because now you've got the foundation and the structure in place, and you can keep going from there.
What an amazing analogy. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that, because that helped me see it too. Thank you. And so I am starting this thing because I think it's important that everyone shares like what they're dealing with now, and no business is perfect. Would you be open to sharing some of your projects that you're working on, opportunities that you're working on, challenges you're trying to overcome? And then we have to wrap up for today. I can't
Yeah. There's a saying out there. I can't remember when I first heard it, but it's this idea that if your business isn't breaking, it's not growing. And I think that's true. Again, we just did quarterly planning with our clients yesterday. And one of the things we really emphasized as we were going through that process was that everything we do is an experiment. Yeah. Every project we do is an experiment. We don't know if it's going to work or not.
Right.
That's why we have to do it.
Right.
When we set out a quarterly plan of all these projects we're going to tackle, what we're coming up with is experiments. And so, when I think about the experiments that we're running in our business or have run recently, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone right now that it's harder to get clients. Right. That sales are hard. And so we're trying different experiments there, right? We, have been rolling out a bunch of really small short form workshops to help meet these founders where they're at, right? I'm starting one tomorrow. We're going to spend 4 1-hour sessions over the next 2 weeks. And we're just going to figure out how to clean up one area of their business, right? It's an experiment we're running to address a challenge that we're seeing, which is that founders have less time, attention, money than they did ever before. And so we're going to try and meet them where they're at. And so that's kind of how I look at like opportunities and obstacles. Like they're two sides of the same coin. The challenge is lead generation. The opportunity is, well, let's get creative. Let's see if we can find a new way to run an experiment to see how that goes.
Love it. I love it. Breanne, where can everyone find you?
Well, I already mentioned our epic article, The Delegation Deception, which is delegationdeception.com. We've got a website, visionaryceoacademy.com, where you can find links to our podcast and programs and all that kind of thing. But honestly, the very best way to get in touch with or connect with me personally is just come send me a friend request on Facebook. Ashley, I think that's where you and I first encountered each other, or at least where we spent the most time talking to each other. Connect with me on Facebook, reach out, tell me that you heard about this conversation, maybe what you had as a takeaway from it, and we can go from there, because my DMs are always open.
I love it. And may I ask, you have an amazing decision-making audit. Can we share that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. visionaryceoacademy.com/audit. If you feel like your founders are still bottlenecking too many decisions, have them go through this, because that's the thing that's going to help them to see more than anything else all the types of decisions that they haven't given up control of yet.
Oh dear, Leah's going to make me go through this one. I just and she's going to prove to me that I need to let go. And she's right. I know she's right. Thank you. Wonderful conversation. I really love how you turned like this household name operational system, and you turned it on its head and just was like, hey, there is a better, different, possibly more effective way for micro businesses, or however we want to call them, to run. And
I'll go ahead and call it better. I'm okay with saying it's a better way. I can say
better way. Heard it here first. I love it. Thank you. And I can't wait to hear more about this framework. So we may ask you to come back on.
I'm always happy to talk about it.
All right. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you same time next week. Bye.